What's up YouTube, I'm Mike, and today I'm back with another video. This one actually may end up on the members only section. I haven't decided yet. If you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know that I believe that we live in the Matrix. I do not say this jokingly. I think that we actually live in the Matrix. If you do any research on this at all, basically the most intelligent people on earth, Elon Musk, any number of physicists I could name, will all tell you that the statistical probability that we are living in base reality is almost nil. I have effectively been testing this theory for the past 3 years. For those of you who wonder like how a person could just up and quit a 6-figure career that they've been working at for 20 years and sell off half of their possessions and buy an RV and take their young children camping on mountainsides and traveling all over the country, just with no fear of consequences, steadily draining their almost entire retirement account, and then going on a $40,000 or more luxury shopping goods spree during the holidays of last year, I think. The reason, well, there's a lot of reasons. One, that I'm a lunatic, but part of being a lunatic comes from the fact, comes from your worldview. So there's all kinds of lunacy in the world. Some people believe blowing themselves up just might be the best way to get to heaven. Other people think that they can play with venomous snakes. And some people seem to think that if they knock on your door at 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday with a gospel tract, that maybe you'll let them into your living room to talk about Jehovah, and that just might get one or both of you into the pearly gates. I happen to be a person who very seriously believes that we are not living in base reality, that we do not have any semblance of free will. And so I set out to test this a long time ago. When I was unemployed at the end of our traveling period, while we were steadily just dwindling through our savings, I made almost zero efforts at getting a job. I uploaded my resume to LinkedIn, and I made some connections and basically just set my LinkedIn profile to looking for a job. And that's all I did. I didn't go knocking on any doors. I didn't actively pursue any companies. In a very short period of time, I started getting recruiters contacting me with job offers. I went on a number of interviews and finally settled with a company that I will not name because I think it's important to keep your personal life separate from your corporate life. That's what I did. Basically, the Matrix worked out again. I was doing absolutely nothing to actively pursue a job, and a door just opened for me. When we were traveling we were up in Seattle, in fact, at the very tip end of our travel, we had planned to go all over the West, and so we went through like Grand Canyon, Las Vegas, we went to all over Utah, Salt Lake City, Tetons, Yellowstone, Glacier National Park, and then we'd cut across the top of the country, and we were in Seattle, Washington. We found out that our mortgage company was trying to foreclose on our home. It's a whole long story. It was total fraud, and we drove 3 days. It took me 3 days to drive back to one of the days we drove 18 hours straight, towing a 24-foot trailer behind our F-250 to get back to Dallas in time to beat the auction that they were trying to hustle us out of our house. And the whole time I kept telling my wife, don't worry about it. There's no reason to stress it. There's no reason to talk about it. We're just going to get home, and what's going to happen is going to happen. And if we're able to save our house, then that means we're meant to stay in Texas for a little while. And if they do something scandalous, then we'll just roll with the punches and we'll land where we land. And we got back to Texas, and my wife, God bless her heart, had been working for 2 years fighting this mortgage company over the scam they were trying to pull on us, and she got it solved, and we got the resolution that we wanted, and that's why I elected to stay in Dallas and go back to work here. So basically, every way that you could test the scenario of having no free will, I've been testing it. I just make unhinged videos. I say whatever pops into my mind. We do OF, we break all of the rules. We make no attempt to follow the rules, and so far things are working out famously. But because this is my worldview, and because I'm constantly trying to test and approve the things I think about the reality of the world that we're living in, just like I did when I was a Christian. I actually was a Christian for a period of time. And if you have basically any common sense at all, it's not hard to, and if you've read the Bible in its entirety, it's not hard to figure out that there's no framework here that you can actually base any kind of knowing on. So again, I'm not trying to hate on anybody who's still a believer, because I can't prove that you're wrong. It's just that the Bible is so horribly inconsistent and terribly written that it just seems like a really bad basis for anything. Does that mean it's wrong? No, it's just not something that it was not something that provided me any level of peace. And so, in trying to test and approve my faith in the Christian church, it floundered. It did not stand up to scrutiny, and it was not something that I could effectively take to the bank. It didn't give me any peace at night. And then the more I researched the nature of reality, the more I realized that there's almost a 100% certainty that we are living in the Matrix. So, you're probably wondering why I spent 5 minutes trying to sell you on the idea that we were living in the Matrix, only to have a video titled, "The Best Evidence That We Are Not Living in the Matrix." And this is where everything shifts gears. So, my wife and I were laying in bed the other night, and I forget what started the conversation. I think we were watching 1883, which is a spinoff of the phenomenal show Yellowstone, which takes place post-Civil War. And they're traveling across the Texas, actually. I still haven't figured out exactly what the purpose of this show is. We're only like a couple episodes deep. And so it's post-Civil War time. And it got my brain cooking. And I came up with what I think is maybe the best evidence that we're not living in a simulation. So here we go. This is the part where this may have to become members only. So, the idea is that any reasonably advanced civilization would attain the capacity to simulate universes, and that the second any civilization began simulating universes, then the number of simulated universes would massively outnumber the singular real universe. And so when you exponentially play out this math, that's basically why Elon Musk thinks that there's a very, very, very tiny chance that we are living in base reality, because of the fact that our own species is now running simulations. Simulations will statistically massively outnumber real scenarios. And so I started thinking to myself, what would I do? Because some people joke that our entire existence may be the simulation of some punk-ass 14-year-old kid in his mom's basement. That the reason that our world is so effed up is because this kid is just running a simulation to see what will happen. It's almost like a Sims game, just to see what would happen to people if you subjected them to like Joe Biden. Like how much shit would people take when you told them that there was a virus that was going to kill everybody and that a tiny little mask would protect you from it? How much shit are people willing to take if you tell them that terrorists flew airplanes into the World Trade Towers and they managed to fall perfectly down in their own footprint, as if it was a controlled demolition? How many lies could you tell to supposedly relatively intelligent people before they would start rejecting the programming? And so that's one of the hypotheses, is that the reason our world is so effed up is because it's literally just it's intended to be. It's intended to be like a test of how much can you take. So I started imagining, if I had the computing power to run simulations, what would I simulate? And herein lies the problem. What I might simulate is, what would the world look like if the Roman Empire hadn't fallen? If the Romans had conquered all of the earth, if they hadn't crumbled from within because of Christianity, more or less, and attacks from the Vikings, if the Roman Empire had not crumbled from within, had gone on to dominate the entire planet, what would that look like? That, in the modern era, is a relatively safe simulation to run. Whatever the answer you get probably doesn't matter much. So if we could simulate what would happen if the Romans had taken over the world, because the Roman Empire is nowhere even close to existing anymore, there's no real downside to finding this information out. So if we found out that the Romans would have ushered into utopia, and that we would all be, living in the mythical city of Atlantis, effectively, that we would have just insane technology and disease would have been cured and everything would be great. you can't obviously go back to Roman times and then progress from there. You could attempt it from here, but this realization wouldn't cause any real social problems. But what would happen, for example, if I ran a simulation to determine what would happen if you change a few key moments in World War II and the Nazis win the war? You know, maybe Hitler doesn't try to attack Russia and lose half of his forces in trying to take Stalingrad. What if the Nazis had succeeded in developing the hydrogen bomb before the Allies? If you move a couple of pieces around and Hitler wins the war, okay, if this is the simulation you run, and when you run the simulation, you find out that a world with absolutely no Jews in it is a utopia. That if Hitler had won the war and had eradicated the Jews and the homosexuals and the gypsies and basically anybody who didn't fit his superhuman mold, if he had succeeded in doing that, if the simulation showed that the world was an exponentially better place with Hitler at the helm, imagine the fallout you would have. Imagine how toxic this data would be to modern man, because we still have Jews running around everywhere trying to institute Zionism basically at every corner of the fucking earth. So if you could prove in a simulated state that empirically the Jews are responsible for all of the misery and mayhem in our world, that would cause a massive problem. I suspect anti-Semitism would come back in a major way, wars would be fought, and possible Armageddon could ensue because you would have proof that you got to get rid of this group of people, okay? What if, for example, I decided to run the simulation? What would have happened if the South had won the Civil War and African Americans were never set free? We're never given civil rights. What if you ran that simulation? What if you ran that simulation and you found out, oh my God, the world would be a much better place. If the South had won the war and we had not given rights to African Americans, there would be far less crime and poverty and all of the things that are destroying our country from within. If you found that out, you would almost certainly have a race war taking place in America the following day. I mean, it would absolutely massively change the way we looked at our fellow man. And these simulations could go either way. You know, if you simulate World War II and Hitler loses but Stalin wins, or you simulate a situation where Zionism sweeps across the planet, or you simulate what would happen if the Islamic State succeeded in annihilating everyone who is not a Muslim. All of these possible simulations that you could run that could show you possibly that things would be significantly better if Hitler had won, if the blacks had never received civil rights, if Jews dominated the planet, whatever the outcome is. The human animal today is not capable of hearing this data. We can't even make factual scientific claims about the differences in the races. We can't do that. We live in a delusional world where we have to toe this line that everybody's equal, everybody's created equal, everybody has the same capacities. We've got to give equal distribution of wealth to the sexes. You've got all the problems with what is a woman? You know, nobody can answer this question anymore. What is a woman? Can a man be a woman? Do you have to have certain genitals to be a woman? Our world has become so insane that everybody's little sensitive feelings just get hurt no matter what you do. So the extreme attempts are being made at pacifying everyone. And any one of these possible simulations that you could run that would show that our way of life is possibly the single worst way of life known to man would cause massive societal problems. If you could prove that homosexuality is tainting the gene pool, this is going to cause massive societal problems. Or imagine the alternative. You prove that the wave of the future, the only way for us as a species to walk hand in hand into an advanced society is to adopt the idea that gender is fluid, that gender is not binary, that what it means to be a woman has nothing to do with the organs that you were born with. Any of these things would be a massive upheaval to our way of life, and it would absolutely schism the population. There would be so much infighting and problems and disasters. So this is my hypothesis for why we might not be living in a simulation. Any civilization intelligent enough to develop simulations would be faced with the very real possibility that if they were to run these simulations, it could cause the destruction of their way of life through total anarchy and fire in the streets, or whatever their world happened to look like. Now maybe the initial species that developed this technology never had the problems that we've had here on Earth. Maybe they were far more intelligent, far better behaved, early on, and their civilization was capable of running simulations, not ushering in total Armageddon. Of course, it's also decidedly possible that these simulations are already being run by they, right? The people in power could have already run these simulations, and that's what's shaping public policy. Maybe they know that the only way to save America and its crashing birth rate is to let illegals flood across the border and repopulate the country. Maybe they know something that we don't know because these simulations are already being run in the background. I suspect that's not the case. I suspect that there is no simulation you could run that would result in Kamala Harris being the ideal candidate to lead America, or Joe Biden is the candidate to lead America. Hell, even Donald Trump, as much as I love the man, I would love to live in a world where we had 10 or 20 conservative Republican candidates who were less problematic than Donald Trump. It really is unfortunate that the best that the Republican Party has to offer is Donald Trump, because the guy steps on a landmine every time he opens his mouth. He could have done substantially better in the debate against Kamala Harris than he did. He is almost certainly going to lose this election, and Kamala Harris is going to single-handedly destroy what is left of America. So hopefully we are living in a simulation that we can at least wake up from. In The Matrix, the movie, there's at least a hope of salvation, because maybe Morpheus will come along and pluck you out of this dream world and put you into the real, base reality to fight back against the machines. I suspect that's not the simulation we are living in. I suspect that it is far more grim than that, and that the best we can possibly hope for is that one day we die and the program ceases and we cease to exist, or suddenly somebody pulls the plug on this server and we all cease to exist. A lifetime, an afterlife of anything permanent, to me, would be the very definition of hell. I have absolutely no interest in surviving this mortal coil in any form or fashion. So there you have it. I think I succeeded in keeping that relatively PG-13. It is an idea I think worth talking about, because it very realistically could be something that happens in our future. If we ever develop the ability to simulate world events, I, for one, will be simulating these things. So maybe I'll be the one to bring you the data about what would happen in those situations if they had gone the other way. I don't know. I would definitely run those simulations, because I don't care what it costs. If I run a simulation that causes absolute mass hysteria, Armageddon and anarchy, I would be the happiest person on earth. So there you have it. Just another little window into what's going on in my world. I'm always trying to vet anything that I believe to be true. And so while believing wholeheartedly that we are living in the Matrix, that we are living in a simulated universe, I decided to set out to see if I could possibly disprove my own theory, and that is the best I've been able to come up with. So there you have it. As always, thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.